Hello and welcome to episode 37 of The Cosmic Force. I am one of your hosts, Tyler Reganti, and tonight is our first live show of 2022, and it is one of our favorite topics to discuss. It is a creator spotlight tonight, and tonight we will be talking about legendary Legends comic writer John Ostrander. And to help us discuss his works, we actually have a special guest host from our very own Legends Lookback show. So that's where we're going to start our introductions. Freddie, how's it going over there, man?
First of all, I am so honored to be on the first episode of Cosmic Force for the year. I feel like there should be some of that. What is that? Price is Right camera movement with some glitter or something just all over my face. But you know what? I'm glad to be here, and the content we're about to talk about is honestly, it's top tier. There's nothing like it.
Yes, we are looking forward to it. And for those of you who noticed that that's not Emma, Emma is actually visiting Batu right now. So we hope you're having fun, Emma. We miss you, and we look forward to you joining us again next week. But we do have the rest of our team here, and Caleb looking snazzy as ever with that comics polo, right?
Absolutely, yes. I spent a lot of money on this. I wouldn't say everyone should run out and get one, but it's really nice. It's if they drop another one, I might have to pick it up too. I might be contractually obligated at this point.
Is that the Shop Disney one?
No, this one came from like a different like third party site, Roosevelt.
Because I've had my eye on a couple of them and I haven't pulled the trigger yet. But
they charge Disney prices, but it was worth it.
One of these days I'm going to get it, and then you and I are going to sync up and we're going to wear it on the show, and it's going to be an awesome time.
Absolutely.
All right, and the last member of our team, Jacob, how are you doing over there? We all settled back in with the second semester of law school, right?
Yeah, my first day was today. I got this really cool new omnibus. It's called Constitutional Law. So that's pretty sick. But
any pictures?
Nope. No pictures. Not that I've seen yet.
Is that your heaviest omnibus?
No, it's actually, so it's funny you mentioned that because it's like 1,800 pages, but it's like that the paper quality is like the stuff like a Bible in a hotel room. Like you can like read through pages to the page behind it. So it's actually surprisingly light. The KOTOR omnibus is much heavier than that, but yeah, it's been fun.
All right. Well, if you are joining us live, or if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are a Star Wars comic podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/Utini every Wednesday night at 8:00. But if you can't join us live, that's okay. We are also available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. We are also part of the Utini podcast network of nearly a dozen shows and a Discord channel at utini.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members and dozens of channels to choose from. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, then head on over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Utini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement activities. So we've got a little bit of a news segment here at the top of the show. It's been a little bit of time since we were here at live, and some things have happened. First and foremost, we do have a brand new, Jacob, is this brand new as of this week, correct?
It came out on Monday. Yeah.
Came out on Monday. Yeah. So, in case you guys didn't know, there's a little show on Disney Plus called Book of Boba Fett. And last week, those of you that are watching this show, I'm sure you know about it, but there was a little bit of a comic Easter egg there. So we discussed this in the pre-show. Are we spoiling this? I feel like it's been a week. I feel like
we already put it on our Twitter feed too.
It's been a week. There you go. It's been a week for people that have listened to this live. It'll be like a week and a half by the time this comes out on the podcast feed.
Right. Okay. So we're spoiling it. So at least
chapter 2,
which was chapter 2, had a very, very awesome moment for us Star Wars comics fans, because Black Chrysanthemum is an actual real life Wookiee in the Star Wars universe, and it was awesome to see. So all of you guys, what was your reaction when you saw that? I mean, I literally gasped. It was so much fun.
It was pretty awesome. But first of all, definitely not a spoiler. It's everywhere right now. It's
that's
literally
true.
anytime you open an Instagram, it's like, oh, in case you didn't know. So yeah, if you didn't know about it by this point, then good for you for being in the dark for that long.
Sorry,
but and oops. But I was shocked, man. I love seeing these characters in new content. There's nothing like it, in my opinion. Seeing original content, or ideas, right, or just things that you've grown with or seen in in a comic book in real life is a different feeling, and there's nothing like
Right.
it. And someone who's deep in Legends, seeing like a legend character come to life now, or something like that, is always fascinating. So seeing that character was pretty fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. This might be a bit extraneous hyperbole, but it must have been what Spider-Man fans in the year 2002 must have seen when, like, they saw the first Spider-Man movies. Like, oh my goodness, my favorite character is now off the page and looks really good in real life. Like seeing Black Chrysanthemum come out of there. Yeah, I think with all of you guys, I gasped out loud and I looked at my wife like, really? Holy crap, they did that. And this was like so exciting. Like after the show, I had to run up and grab my omnibus of Afra and like, look, he's here. And he looks just like it. He's like,
it's true.
100%. And the ancient texts.
Jacob, did I see that you purchased a Darth Vader 2015 Volume 1, or were you just sharing a link? So that was not something that you previously owned.
It was not
before last week.
I did some I did some scrambling right when the episode came out, like that day, and managed to get it before it exploded completely in price.
There you go. I wish I could have said it. For those of you who watched last week's episode, where we kind of had our wish list of things that we wanted to see in 2022. I wish I could say I had inside information when I said I wanted to see comic book characters cross over into other mediums. That just happened to be random luck, and that's probably my luck for all of 2022 used right then and there. So you're welcome to the rest of the Star Wars community for using all of my luck on a wishing comic crossover characters into real life. So
well, I guess that means you have the mojo, so we just have to remember this for next year so we can try to use it for even more.
There you go. So if anybody else wants something to happen for 2023, tweet at us at Cosmic Force Show, and we'll keep it in our backlog, and when we do our year in review preview for 2023, I'll wish it into existence.
Maybe we should get on the back.
First one here. I want to see. Let's see. Let's just say I'm tweeting you right now. I will say, hey, is it at Cosmic Force?
At Cosmic Force Show.
At Cosmic Force Show. Got it. I want to see Jared cosplay as Salacious Crumb. Make it happen.
Not Darth Talon.
Right. We're gonna put that in our list, and I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna put that into existence for next year.
Speaking of Twitter, I have to share this from creator of the Black Chrysanthemum character, Kieran Gillen, writer of Darth Vader 2015, posted on Twitter today that he went back to his first draft of issue 1 and his working name for Black Chrysanthemum was Nubaka. So like Chewbacca,
I much prefer Black Chrysanthemum,
but Nubaka, which is incredible. Like, God bless him.
But and also another point of clarification: his name is Black Chrysanthemum, not Chrysanthemum. I think somebody had posted.
Someone tweeted at someone on Twitter being like, "It's just Chrysanthemum is his name." They're like, "Excuse me, I was on the first comic book. Like, I was a creator on that comic book," which is all. Yeah, like. Yeah. Well,
anyways, there is more news. There is more news.
There's a lot of news.
So yeah, Kayla, why don't you go ahead and tackle this little thing we have called High Republic Phase 2.
Phase 2, exactly. The current it's big. They just did the High Republic show on YouTube. If you're not following up with that, they pretty much just do huge content drop every. Like, is it bi-weekly?
I think it's bi-monthly,
of all the stuff that's going on in the High Republic. So apparently the current phase of comics is going to end this March. So we have a couple issues to wrap up all these loose ends, which isn't going to happen, I don't think. There's no way they can do all that. But Kevin Scott is coming back for phase 2 come October. Daniel Jose Older will also be doing a graphic novel for the High Republic with the Dark Horse license. So we're already seeing what's happening with Dark Horse taking back control of the IP, taking back a bit of the IP, a slice of the pie. Charles Soule is doing a Porter Engel story for Marvel, And no news on the manga for the Edge of Bounce, but there's some really big stuff going on, and I have no idea how these authors get any sleep into their schedule. This is
Seriously.
and this is just a comics and graphic novel side of things. There's a whole lot more on just like the normal publishing side.
Well, luckily for the authors getting sleep, we are bringing in the Living Force talked about this in more depth if you want like full phase 2 coverage on Monday, but they are bringing in 4 new authors for the initiative, including, let me see if I can do this off the top of my head, Tessa Gratton, Lydia Kang, George Mann, and Zoraida Cordova are the 4.
There you go.
On the StarWars.com write-up, it did say they would be doing books and comics. Not sure who's doing what, but we'll get some new faces there.
Yes, and staying on the High Republic news, we had a brand new miniseries start this week, which we will talk about once we get into the weekly pull list. But the reason that we have this in the news section is because, Jacob, there was a recommended reading order for this book, and that's the part that we want to talk about right here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Charles Soule, who wrote Eye of the Storm, is a 2-issue miniseries, I suppose. The first issue came out today. He said, I read the first issue. You can totally read it before Fallen Star. You can definitely read it before Fallen Star. I would say probably have read Rising Storm, probably have listened to Tempest Runner. I think would help a lot.
I could see that. Okay, I support that.
And but otherwise you'd be fine. Definitely, yeah. If you've started Fallen Star, if you haven't started Fallen Star, it shouldn't matter. And then the issue 2 is coming out sometime next month. And he recommends you read that as the last thing for phase 1 phase 1. So you got a little bit of time there. Unfortunately, there are some High Republic comics that come out after that if you really want to save that for the end. Also, yeah, all the comics
Plus,
should be...
we've got
all the
Midnight
comics
Horizon coming out too.
Yeah, so that comes out in February, like the beginning of February, so that should be out before the comic. But then you have comics going out through March, and then you have the manga in May, but that's been pretty self-contained. So, but issue 1 doesn't matter. Issue 2 at the end of the phase.
So we do have we have a comment in the chats. Blue Pig is asking if Monster of Temple Peak will be put in any collected editions.
I'm pretty scared about that.
Yeah, and I'm in a couple of different Star Wars comics Facebook groups, and I believe I saw in there. I'll try to throw it in our Discord channel, but I believe Charles Soule even or not.
Kevin Scott.
One of the High Republic authors, I think it was Kevin Scott, had said he didn't throw complete ice on it, but he said he was not sure. So it's not looking hopeful. So if you're looking to Blue Pig or anybody else who's out there, if you're looking to read Monster Temple Peak, we'd probably recommend you get the single issues because it's not probable as of this time that's going to come out. It's
not solicited to be printed, and I have a little hope the fact that when they did the phase 2 announcement, they referred to the Dark Horse comics or the Dark Horse graphic novels as High Republic Adventures specifically. So maybe that imprint moves like fully in name as well. But yeah, it's a little dicey. But I mean, at the same time, with like if Marvel can figure out how to get all the Dark Horse old stuff onto Marvel Unlimited and just slap a Disney sticker on it, then it's possible.
Right. It's certainly possible. But all right, and our last piece of news, Freddy, we have some old friends joining us in their own standalone comic coming out in 2022.
This is interesting, man. Han Solo and Chewbacca, they've been confirmed. 12 issues? Is that what I'm seeing here?
At least 12,
if not more.
So when they announced this, we were kind of unsure. They definitely avoided using the phrase miniseries. Like it was kind of clear that they did that on purpose. But we now know it's going to be at least 12 issues long because Marvel sent out like an ad that you can pre-order it to, like, if you get your comics directly from them. And the pricing was a year's worth of comic books. So I don't know if it's going to be 12 issues and only, or if that's just your first year subscription, like you would like a regular magazine. But we'll get at least 12, it seems.
That's interesting. 12 books is a pretty decent run, right? That's not a mini series.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking 2 trade paperbacks. I mean, trade paperbacks are usually
Six,
5,
issues.
6, 7 issues, maybe an annual, throwing an annual in there. So
Yeah.
you're talking about 2 trade paperbacks. That's and a year's worth of publishing. So that's awesome. I love hearing that.
You're gonna get some
At
decent arts in
least-
there
at
too.
least,
It's exciting.
Yeah.
So-
All right, let's go ahead and get into our weekly pull list. And boy, do we have quite a bit this week. Did you combine weeks?
No, I did not.
Holy cow!
So the world punished me because last week we had a single issue and has slapped me back with I guess 4 issues and a couple graphic novels. So anyways, starting off at the top, we got Eye of the Storm #1 by Charles Soule with pencils from Guillermo Sana. The cover is from Ryan Brown. The colorist is Jim Campbell, and the letterer is Ariana Meyer. We also have Star Wars #20, also from Charles Soule, titled Dangerous Lessons. Pencils by Marco Castillo. The cover is from Carlo Pagulayan. The colorist is Rochelle Rosenberg, and the letterer is Clayton Cowles. We also have Bounty Hunters #20 with Friends Like These, written by Ethan Sachs, pencils by Paolo Villanelli. The cover is Giuseppe Camuncoli. The colorist is Brian Valenza, and the letterer is Travis Lanham. We also have High Republic Adventures #12, written by Daniel Jose Older. The pencils and cover are from Harvey Tolabau, with colors from Rebecca Nalty, and the letterer is Jake Wood. That's the end of our single issues, and now into graphic novels. We have Bounty Hunters Volume 3. This is the final War of the Bounty Hunters trade paperback that's coming out. This is collecting issues 12 through 17. Written by Ethan Sachs, pencils by Paolo Villanelli. The cover is by Mattia De Luis, and the colorist is Arf Prieto, with letters from Travis Lanham. Star Wars Adventures, The Weapon of the Jedi. This is a 2-comic issue adaptation of the Junior Reader from Jason Fry. The adaptation is by Alec Worley, with pencils and cover by Rory Coleman. The colorist is Chris O'Halloran. The letterer is Amori Osirio. And so yeah, that is there. And then lastly, this one's not exactly a comic book, but it's called Tribute to Star Wars. It is a manga published by Viz Media, who has done the Edge of Balance manga, and it's just a bunch of manga artists who got together to do like a tribute to Star Wars, doing some Star Wars inspired art. I have not picked it up, but I've heard good things about it. So a packed list for sure. If you want to get any of those for yourself, you can check out the links in the YouTube description down below.
Damn, I think that was like the hardest one we've ever had, man. Good
yeah,
job.
that was definitely the longest.
Jared just asked
So,
if
like
Bounty
6
Hunters.
drops?
Yeah, 7. Jared just asked if Bounty Hunters is coming to an end. No, it's
No.
still going. That trade paperback is the last War of the Bounty Hunters event tie-in trade paperback. So the series is still going. We just got issue 20 today.
Which, by the way, issue 20 was really, really good. They like
I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
All of the books that came out today were pretty good.
I've
like-
not read High Republic Adventures, but yeah, Eye of the Storm was good. Star Wars #20 is insanely good.
like it's something's weird when the brand new like Eye of the Storm got a lot of discussion amongst us, but we talked for way longer about what happened in Star Wars
Yes.
issue 20.
Mhm.
Like that was crazy.
Yeah.
So
It's great. It's Luke's part of Luke's Jedi journey before Return of the Jedi. It is a standalone issue, so you could have read you could pick that up having read almost no Star Wars comics ever. And it would still be fine because it's completely contained, and it also has some High Republic ties for those people that are obsessive about all that kind of stuff, like me. Yeah, it is a masterpiece. I'll say that.
That it is. All right, let's go ahead and move on to what we're loving this week. And for Art of the Week, we only have one submission this week, and that is coming from Jacob. And it's a very timely piece. Jacob, so why don't you go ahead and describe this?
This is from Dawn of the Jedi. It's only appropriate that if we're doing a John Ostrander discussion, that we have some Jan Duursema art. This is from Dawn of the Jedi. I think it might be #1. I can't tell.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's
But it is a series by the two of them, set 30,000 years BBY in the Legends timeline. It is the earliest thing that has ever happened in any Star Wars storytelling, canon or Legends. So I think it's out there, very different. We've got the Jedi and their giant pyramid spaceships. So it's yeah, it's definitely much different than what you're used to, but I mean, visually stunning.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and get into what we're reading this week. I've got some special shout outs here so our fearless leader Corey went ahead and offset some of his collection, and I was lucky enough to grab some of them, and this is what I've been reading this week. So we've got the hardcover of Captain Phasma, we've got the hardcover of Shattered Empire, we've got the hardcover of Kanan collection, and then the hardcover of the Han Solo miniseries. So first off, thank you, Corey, for sending all those. But yeah, these are great. I love adding the hardcovers to my collection because they look awesome. I feel like the art pops a little bit more in the hardcovers and the page material. I've already read through Shattered Empire and Phasma, working my way through Kanan now. So that's been a lot of fun. And I think all of us, I know Jacob and I have, we've read Fallen Star and Mission to Disaster. Jacob, did you finish Mission to Disaster?
Yep.
Yeah. So Freddie and Caleb, have you had a chance to read Fallen Star yet?
I'm going through Into the Dark.
No.
Okay.
Like
okay.
I got a ways to catch up from now, and I've finally like you very early when you're reading that, like, Caleb, you gotta read this. Like, there's some characters here you need to see. I'm like, I don't need to know anymore, but I guess I'll catch up. Now, I did get, speaking of our fearless leader, I did get some stuff from Corey too. I got his the Old Republics Volume 1 and 2, which is kind of like the first major story arc. So if I don't get any more of this series, I'll be okay with it. But this is like a really solid, like just solid Star Wars storytelling. So thank you, Corey, for sending this to me. I will treasure it for years to come.
And Freddie, I think you showed us in the pre-show. You're also reading something very interesting, and we had to share it on the show.
You know, I was joking about the comic book, the Eminem comic book, but it's actually Poe Dameron, believe it or not. Yeah, so believe it or not, guys, I'm actually keeping up with some canon. Okay, not too much. I'm still fairly in the Legends arena of things. That's where my expertise lies, and that's where everything's at. But
Jared is calling you out and says you haven't read canon since Legends Lookback started.
You know, that's a fact. I was getting heavily into canon. Then Jared had this great idea that, hey, we're gonna just never have time for canon, and that's where I'm at. So
well, you guys weren't you guys like doing like 2 roundtables a month for a while, like at the beginning?
Yeah, we were doing about a book a month or 2 books a month.
Holy cow!
It was those first few episodes. We covered quite a bit of content, that's for sure.
We as comic readers don't only do a round table once a month.
And we have the benefit in that, at least they're making new canon comics, which we covered. They're not making new Legends. You're going to burn out one of these decades.
One of these days. One of these days, I'll finally catch up.
Decades.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right. Well, let's go ahead. We're running extremely long tonight, so we're going to go ahead and get into our merch break, and then when we come back, we're going to go ahead and get into our main topic, and that is John Ostrander. So we will be right back.
It's what Jimmy McGinty says Shane
Charles
Falco needs.
Is absolutely
calling. Put him on. Put him on. Wait, is this the first time caller?
Hello, you are live on The Living Force.
Hey, long time listener, first time caller.
Yes. What's your question?
My question is for Wes. Why does he think that he can do my job?
Corey put me up to it. Oh my God.
Because Corey made you do it? That's your answer?
Oh, man,
I'm enjoying the show. I won't interrupt anymore. Have
fun.
How canon is Darth Bane? Obviously, he is his samurai body, voiced by Mark Hamill, is in season 6 of the Clone Wars, and they reference Bane's order and all that. You created the ruler too, but this is the worst Yoda I've ever done. I'm getting tired. It's been a long week.
Is that what that was?
I thought you were having a voice moment.
Yeah.
I didn't
The
even get the word
coughing fit.
structure right.
Oh man.
Edit that in post, Rick. How can
You put this image in my head of Piet just whipping out an Uno reverse card and slapping it down.
Bam!
Take that.
Yeah, Vader does not play Uno though, so I don't think that would be a wise long-term
No,
discussion.
He doesn't have the patience for it. He just force chokes everybody.
Exactly.
All right. Like we said at the top of the show, tonight's show is a creator spotlight, and this is our second. We decided this was our second writer spotlight, right, guys?
Yes.
We've done a Charles Soule, and tonight we're going to do
Kevin Scott.
We're covering. Oh, that's sorry. That's right. We did Kevin Scott, and then tonight we are doing. We're reviewing John Ostrander's history. He's actually been a very, very active writer of comics. He wrote for both DC and Marvel. Some of the Marvel books that he's known for are X-Men, Bishop, and Punisher. And then on the DC side of the aisle, he's written most notably for Suicide Squad and Catwoman. And I have a note here, Freddie, you wanted me to make sure that his interpretation of the Suicide Squad is the widely accepted version that even has led into the most recent movie, correct?
Yeah. I would say that his Suicide Squad is the Suicide Squad. Obviously, it's the start of everything, but the way it reads, the way it feels, it's perfect content. At the time that it was released, there was nothing like it, and it just once it was on those shelves back in the day, I couldn't tell you how popular it became. My cousins, everybody talks about it still, and they're like, oh, because I told them I was doing a John Ostrander episode, and they're like, Suicide Squad, and I was like, yeah, and these guys aren't really comic book guys anymore, so that he's really permeated the industry with that series for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, and he's also he's left his legacy on the Star Wars as well, because he's written this for, it looks like, if I'm doing my rough math correct, almost 15 years of Star Wars writing at least.
So the Star Wars Republic stuff came out in like 2000. I know that. So
right,
and then it went
have Dawn of the Jedi
2014, so almost 15 years. Yeah.
It's been a long run. I mean, if you look at the amount of comics that he's produced, right, there's 50 issues right off the bat with Legacy. That's his legacy. And then you've got Batman and Catwoman and Spectre and Suicide Squad. I'm sure this guy has penned over, in terms of text, he's penned over hundreds and thousands of words on different comic books. I mean, I can't imagine at this point. He's a legacy. Absolutely.
And more often than not with the Star Wars books, he was often paired with Jan Duursema for his books. So let's run down the list here. Caleb, why don't you run down the list here of just the series that and the run times of those series here that we have, because he's got quite a lengthy resume here.
Absolutely. Yes. So he started in the year 2000 with the Star Wars series that not terribly long after he started writing for it, they changed the name to just Republic, to Star Wars Republic. So that one lasted from 2000 to 2005. Then he did Legacy, Star Wars Legacy, from 2006 to 11. That was his next major long-running series. He also did a couple of shorter, like mini series, like Agent of the Empire. There were two mini arcs there, so a total of 12 issues, I think. Then he did Dawn of the Jedi, which was like a 3-issue mega arc. There's like 20-ish issues there, I felt like.
There's like, I think there's like 6 or 7 main issues, and then like different okay,
there's three like story arcs, like the like Dawn of
Force
Jedi,
Storm,
like,
Prisoner of Bogan, and Force War.
Yes, and each one was like 6 issues long, I think.
5, yeah.
Okay, so 3 little mini arcs. His 3 episodes, as it were, his trilogy. He also did a couple of other short subjects, like longer single issues, like 40-ish pages for Boba Fett, Mace Windu, Shakti, Aayla Secura, and Count Dooku. So he's like, I don't think there's anyone even in canon right now who's almost written as much Star Wars as he has. So I don't know if he ever quite will, because boy, did they use him a lot, and for good reason.
I mean, Kieran Gillen is like probably the closest because he wrote all of 25 issues of Darth Vader, and like I want to say like not even that much, like maybe like 12 issues of Afra, the first volume. Like he's up there, but like we don't have like the longest run is Star Wars, but that was split into three authors. So the 2015 run, Jason Aaron did like the first half, so not even 40 issues. So yeah, we haven't gotten it. Legacy alone like trumps the amount of issues like any canon writer's ever done.
Absolutely, and that's impressive. He's done so much work. So and it's wild when you get into it, because like I remember I didn't really read a lot of these comics when I was coming out, but boy, like the fandom really was eating up a lot of these characters. Like Quinlan Voss was the cool kid's favorite Jedi. Like anyone who like got it deep into the Wikipedia loved like Quinlan Voss and Kuthok and like everything that was going on in there. So
I mean, he's the coolest character into the Phantom Menace. Like his 2 seconds of screen time.
Absolutely the best. The best. So he's done a lot of as I said, the length of his breath is really, really impressive. So let's start talking about some questions here. As I kind of went into it, he had a couple of his like favorite characters that he brought in throughout his early series, and a couple of his short stories. Probably the most notable one is Quinlan Voss, the dark side Jedi who does a lot of undercover work. Freddy, what are some of your favorite like Quinlan Voss like moments that Ostrander helped pin there?
The interesting thing that I found out with Quinlan Voss was, basically his entire which is being that kind of ranger, right? He's discovering certain things. He's on his own. He kind of crosses between the border of light and dark. He has a very intense skill. Honestly, I would love, out of all the skills that Jedi have, I would totally want his.
The psychometry.
Yeah, exactly. But the way that John Ostrander pens this work, I call it penning, although that's not the proper term. His text reads. How do I describe this? It's interesting. If you were to read, like, I'll give you an example. Catwoman 72. Read that issue if you want to just get a taste of his art, and the way he works with the images. His words work so well with those images that it almost speaks to you without having to really do too much. I mean, it's a very interesting way of doing it, and he understands the character. And I feel like when I read those comics, the way he wrote for him, it made me feel what he was feeling, and it just gave me such a vibe of who this guy was going to be. And the more I got to grow with it, the more I got to see Ostrander's genius at work with just working with those images, just his words working with those images. That's the fascinating thing to me. So bringing Quinlan to life is really what I saw, right? Bringing his character to life and giving him even more than we already wanted. I mean, everybody wants everything from this guy. Quinlan's awesome.
Yeah, one thing I definitely, because I read Twilight, which is like the first 4 issues where he's introduced for the Republic series, and one thing that really caught me, especially with the first issue, from a writing standpoint, was internal monologue, because that's like not something we see in modern comic books like at all. Like you see speech bubbles. You see like the little square like stage note kind of type things. You never see like thought bubbles in modern Star Wars comics, like ever. Like that's not a good thing or bad thing. It's just different. And that first issue, which just like the premise of it is Quinlan Voss has lost his memory. He wakes up in a fire and has no idea who he is, or like doesn't know he's a Jedi, doesn't know what a Jedi is, and just like is trying to figure out what happened. And you're seeing him like through his internal monologue trying to figure out like what is going on and just trying to survive. And I think Like that's just such a incredibly interesting premise to start with. And it was, I think it was pretty brave to go. You go like a third of the issue in before you see a single like a line of dialogue. Like
Yeah.
um,
And that's very common with his work. You get
Yeah.
inside of the character's head, you get a feeling of what they're thinking, how they're feeling, and the way he goes about it is just exactly like you described. It's genius, and you don't really see that in too many other authors. You know, everyone has their own style.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely. Another one that he kind of attached up a lot and have kind of helped perpetrate a character he kind of brought almost throughout his entire series is the Jedi Master. Let me butcher his name one more time. Ku Kathurk. He's a nigh immortal witted Jedi Master who helped survive Order 66. He kind of has a cool conical, like, Ronin style hat, and like, shows up in his Legacy series 150 years, looking none the worse for wear. So is that something that, a couple of other of his characters seem to have done that? Like, is he just good at making badass, cool characters, or is there something else going on here, you think?
Oh, that's a good question, right? And I keep taking the spotlight, guys. I'm sorry, but John Ostrander is such a legend to me, and the characters that he's created in Legends lore are very well liked in those groups. And for instance, Darth Talon. Darth Talon's even rumored to be one of George Lucas's favorite characters. Why? We can probably guess.
How do I say her character appeal is very apparent.
It is. The character's also, she holds her own, right? She's an assassin, and that seems to be a fitting guise in her character. And of course, Cade Skyer. Can we mention badass in terms of Jedi, right? Like that, I feel like he's the one that we all want to see in one of these movies one of these days, right? It is such a crazy character. And of course, we've got the Zeltron, Jalaya Blue. He's very good at creating memorable characters, that's for sure.
Now, if I did not read comics when I was a kid, and a lot of these books came out well before I started reading it, and I'm a physical reader, so I don't have a lot of these. But if I remember correctly, all of those characters that you mentioned there, especially Cade, we're talking very, very far end of the Legends timeline, right?
135 ABY ish. Yeah.
I was gonna say that.
He is
okay.
Luke's like great grandson,
I
think it is.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Okay. So
Still
I was gonna say
Skywalker.
I've heard of these characters, but
Yeah.
I haven't read any of them because I wasn't into comics then. But I do remember they were at the very far end of the time.
Because it goes Luke, Ben, ? Cole, Cade. I don't know what happens between then.
Yeah. I don't think I have it off the top of my head, but yeah, you're right. It's about like 120 some years or so after Palpatine's death.
It was very interesting. Yeah, because I read them this week, like the first 7 issues. It was very interesting because I was definitely a Wikipedia kid. Like I read a decent amount growing up, but like, there's so much that you can't, like, with a child with no income, you can only read so much physically. So when your book and comic book supply runs dry, you turn to the Wook. And I definitely experienced Dawn of the Jedi and this, both Ostrander works, basically via Wikipedia. Because like, I don't know, I'm just like one of those people that's like drawn to the extremes of the timeline. So like he's done literally the beginning and the end of the Legends timeline. It's kind of why I like the High Republic. It's the farthest forward or farthest back we've ever gotten in canon. But actually getting to read Legacy now was, I don't know, it's just very interesting. These characters I've like had ideas of in my mind for, I don't know, I guess almost 15 years now, or 10 years or so. Actually seeing them in real life now, it's kind of crazy.
Exactly.
It's it's like I know I have the Old Republic omnibus. I don't know when I'm gonna finish it, but and it's like now, but now and it's the same length. It's 50 issues, but like now that I've started Legacy, I'm like, I just kind of want to keep going. Like I read it for this show, but it's like, well, he's kind of gripping me. 7 issues in, I was like, I want to keep reading.
And that's exactly the reception that it received when it came out. It wasn't actually very good when they announced it. People were typical fans, and this is the thing when you look back in time and you look at I wouldn't say typical fans. There's a certain fandom, right? That starts to hate on things.
The subsect of Star Wars fans.
Exactly. And you just got to look at yourselves and look at you back then and say, really, guys? Come on. You all know you loved it. And that's what I tell everybody right now is, you're going to love this in like 5 years, so shut up. But the thing is, with this series, people were so skeptical when it started off. They were like, well, we don't know about it. And he basically, I'm not sure how he did it on Twitter or how he went about it. Message the bottle back in those days, it wasn't that long ago. But after the first arc went through, I think it was like 4 issues. I think there's like a floater in there that's a solo issue.
Yep.
Yeah,
People were in. They were in it, and they're like, oh, this is good. And then that's where you see, I challenge you to find me a better duo than Jan Duursema and Ostrander.
Well, it's like, I do enjoy it like 7 issues in, but it to be honest, it is a very strange start. Like the first issue, you're like, I mean, I read Legacy of the Force back in the day. I didn't read Fate of the Jedi, so like there is some like time that I'm missing in the timeline. But it's like, I have no idea. Like you like hop in, it's like, what is going on? Like. We like there are knights that are Imperial knights and with white lightsabers. There's the Jedi. There are these missionaries. There's two There's 2 emperors. There's
one of them's not a bad guy.
One of them,
yeah. You've come into such a fractured Star Wars.
It's
right?
like it kind of like just drops you in. Like you're like, whoa. To be fair,
you just finished the Yuuzhan Vong War, which is a whole thing.
Yeah, I mean that was 100 years ago now, though, in the timeline. Yeah. But it's like I know there's an issue 0, but I couldn't find it on Marvel Unlimited, so maybe that context would have helped me. But yeah, I was like, oh, all right, buckle up, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
all right,
it's
I'm gonna skip ahead here real quick because now you guys have me interested. There's a part in the rundown here that says, where should you start? So now that you guys are talking about all these sorts of different timelines,
I feel like it's got to be Republic, right?
I need to know where to start. Our listeners want to know where they need to start.
What I did, well, I haven't read everything. So what I read was I read his short stories, the Mace Windu, the Shakti, Aayla Secura, and then Count Dooku.
Okay,
those are small little larger issue sort of things, but it can't tell a narrative over them, and it's very much into Clone Wars, so you might lose a little bit of context between what was going on in his main line in the Republic. But those ones give you really nice snapshots of characters and kind of full arc, so it's an easy way to get yourself into that into his writing there.
Also, for fans of Asajj Ventress, I think we've talked about this before. I believe the Mace Windu issue is her first appearance in any media whatsoever before the micro series.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think we've mentioned that before. Jared in the chat says, high praise here from Jared. He says Legacy might be the best Star Wars ever written. And he also says that you're not really supposed to know what's going on. It's very Game of Thronesy, where I'm assuming that he means that the world is already established. You're not going to get that prequel, that prologue.
That's fair.
You're just going to go right into it and just keep up. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would say it's fair. I mean, you reading this even the first time, I knew what was happening before that, right? The Yuuzhan Vong and that whole war, and of course everything that they did. And the good thing that Ostrander does is he references some of those things, like, there's a reason why Coruscant looks like this and why everything's so fractured. That's the whole point, is like everything's fractured.
He does a good job of giving
there.
that context.
Yeah, exactly. He does a great job at that, and that's his skill, right? Is he can get you right into the story, and once you pass the first arc, get into the second one, you're not even going to think about a lot of what's going on. You've kind of got the shock factor of like, holy cow, this is a different Star Wars, but it's Star Wars. And
exactly.
All right, good.
Like it's almost when I was kind of reading it, I almost got flashes, and it's weird as a comparison as this is, to the High Republic. It's a brand new timeline that you can't get whatever you can. So there's like a whole new universe, and like the writers can do what they want in this thing to set up new untold conflicts. But while the High Republic is definitely very positive, very kind of nice outlook on it, like Legacy is definitely very like grungy, like late 2000s, angry.
It is very 2000s.
It is very.
I mean, if Freddy's saying if Freddie's saying Yu Zhang Vong, I've read the Yu Zhang Vong. I've got all my
Yeah.
my
I mean-
Legends novels behind me. So that was some of my favorite. That and New Jedi Order was some of my favorite novels.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that
It's-
some of these books are some of these comics are right in line with that on the timeline, now you got me.
It's
really
100 years
excited.
after that, but you know, it definitely
Okay.
influences the events of the galaxy
gonna
at the
see-
time.
Yeah, you're gonna see the remnants of what that war has
Awesome.
done to the universe even 100 years after. That's the crazy part.
Mhm.
So you're gonna see that whole fractured everything, and you're gonna be like, goodness gracious, like the Yuuzhan Vong really messed up this galaxy, and you can still see it.
I remember that. Yeah, those were some very galaxy fandom changing moments in that novel series. So I'm excited to hear about that. So
Yeah.
So to
right.
put maybe a pin in this, where should you start with his Star Wars works? Freddie, you're the go-to expert. Where would you say?
Well, if you want to get an idea of John Ostrander and his work to appreciate him a bit, read a couple issues of Suicide Squad, maybe 2 issues, 3 issues at the max. Read 72 Catwoman just to see how he develops characters, and then just jump into Legacy and just start going full steam ahead. And don't
Okay.
even look anywhere else. If you want to just jump in it, it's a new era. And at the time, it was a new era for us too. And we were like, goodness gracious, this is crazy. And you're gonna love it, honestly. It's 50 issues too, so you're gonna be there for a while, and you're gonna enjoy his work. And then him and Dursuma together, you honestly can't see any better artwork and comic bookery, I'm gonna
Yeah.
call it.
I'll say I'll give a plug for, I think, starting. I'm gonna take the Foundational 5 approach of the familiar. I'm gonna go with his work on Republic. He starts on issue 19. It's also known as the 98 run of Star Wars. If you're trying to find it on Marvel Unlimited, I think it puts you in a timeline that's familiar enough where you have some touch points if you're a fan that hasn't gotten into that part of Legends before, and it's also, you know, it's great. Quinlan Voss, Ayla Secura. I think it was really cool for me reading that because it came out in 2000, so we're just after the Phantom Menace, before Attack of the Clones has come out, and I just think the idea generally of Legends media that came out during the prequel era before the movies is just so fascinating to me, because like it's one thing like comparing, like, you know, Legacy of the Force or whatever, or the Heir of the Empire trilogy to the sequel movies, because Lucas didn't have anything in mind for what came afterwards, like that was written down anywhere. Like that was just like people
Right.
kind of took it where they wanted to. But like, you know, in A New Hope we get like, well, there were the Clone Wars before this, and Obi-Wan fought with a bunch of Jedi Knights, and there's Anakin Skywalker with him. All like there are some things to go off of, but you know what we ended up seeing in some of the works was radically different than what we got from the prequel movies. Like, you know, Yoda was originally on Dagobah for like hundreds of years or something like that. So it's just interesting to see that timeline, or that era develop as the movies were being created.
So
Nice. Yeah, you
three
guys,
people gave you 3 different answers. Hope that
Yeah,
helps.
but
Start
I
with
mean,
Truce at Bakura.
I've already read that. That was actually so fun
you
fact.
read the
That
Micro
was
Machines?
I do not have the Micro Machines, but Truce Bakura and X-Wing Rogue Squadron were the 2 first Star Wars novels I ever read. So
Nice.
Truce Bakura has a very soft place in my heart as well, Freddie, because that is where it got started for me. But I mean, you all have given me recommendations before on things that I haven't read, because like I said, other than prior to 2015, I haven't read a lot of Star Wars comics. But I don't think I've been this excited to go pick up something new as right now, as you guys are talking about this right now. So I'm very excited about this, and part of the things that does get me excited. Caleb, you listed a couple of consistent themes in some of Ostrander's work. So this first one right here is something that I've always found fascinating, and I really think, getting back to the Yu Zhang Vong, I feel like this was a theme that was common during the Yu Zhang Vong War too as well, and that's the theme that the light and dark sides being interchangeable. So tell me a little bit more about that.
It's something that, it's like, again, I'm not the scholar here, but it's something that comes up again and again in a lot of his works, you know, like Jedi falling to the dark side, dark side users getting redeemed. There's a kind of, this might be a minor spoiler, but in like the Legacy series, like towards the end of the first arc, Cade, who's a Jedi and who's reaching out with the Force to heal someone, was a Jedi. He's reaching out with the Force to try to heal someone, and apparently it's very dangerous because that's very in tune with the dark side. And that's not something that, like, even in the games is really like expanded upon. Like, usually that's a light side thing because healing people is good, but like it's a dark side sort of thing because it's a selfish act of trying to save those and, like, protect, like, not. It's like it's why Anakin fell to the dark side, was trying to heal and protect someone that was close to him. I found I was like, wait, whoa, that's an interesting thought. I never thought about it that way.
Jared makes a great point. We always talk about it, but he's the chief champion. Ostrander's the chief champion in the Great Jedi, and you're right about the healing part. It wasn't even healing, right? Healing's something that the Jedi
back
do.
from the dead, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, he gave him the good old Force lightning
defib.
Defib, yeah, just
clear. So, and that's the sort of thing that he likes to talk about, is like the like Ostrander definitely has like a view of like the Force, and that's something that I think is fascinating. I feel like it can maybe, the problem is it can definitely color a lot of fans' expectations in that, well, Ostrander said this is how the Force is, so therefore this is how the Force is. So, but when like another author comes out with the new canon, a lot of people are not really happy with this and still like, no, Grey Jedi should definitely be a thing. I think it's okay for the Force to be a little bit more black and white, but Ostrander wanted to explore that. Well, what if it wasn't? And that's really cool. I feel like a lot of people still like are holding on to that with Talons maybe a little bit too much, and a little bit more Darth Talons with it.
I mean, we even had
sorry guys, I just realized this is a deep dive into Ostrander, but I think where that might come from is there was a point in time in Ostrander's life where he was actually trying to become a Catholic priest.
Yes.
And decided that it wasn't worth his time. Obviously, he went to comic books instead, and I don't believe he even celebrates anything in terms of religion. So
the research that I did, unofficially, yes, I believe it might have even been Wikipedia, so do not trust this. Actually says that he considers himself agnostic at this point. So again, if you're doing a very quick Google search on John Ostrander, that's what's going to come up. I cannot verify that, so please don't at me by saying that that's not true. But that's what I found on the internet.
Yeah, and that's probably where we're seeing that interchangeability, right? It makes sense.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because like, I won't spoil it, but I mean, it's something that the canon has kind of been trending towards anyways, but we definitely got some more stuff in comics recently that like went from the perspective that the Jedi are not like, it's a dogma. The Jedi are, it's like a dogma, but it's not the only way to approach the Force, and not the only way to approach being a light user of the Force. Like, it's just one interpretation of that. We got that with Ahsoka obviously for a while, but yeah, I think you don't have to be a Jedi. And I mean, Cade Skywalker is a whole another, that's something else. That is the definition of a troubled protagonist. He's got some issues.
He's a typical Skywalker.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
Luke just crushing those death sticks all the time.
So that's an interesting. So we're gonna go ahead. So the next little bullet point here for themes are adult relationships. So speaking of Cade, I'm gonna go ahead and say this is a perfect Eric segue here into this next theme of adult relationships throughout his work. So I'm assuming, by the way that you guys are talking, Cade is like a perfect example of this.
And just to go ahead and say this, when I wrote adult relationships, I'm not saying like relationships in which people have a lot of like emotional maturity. I'm talking about sex.
Yeah, I was saying in the pre-show, Cade Skywalker is basically sex, drugs, and rock and roll the Jedi. Yeah.
This feels like the Dark Horse era. Just talking about it feels like Dark Horse Star Wars.
I will say not all of it has aged very well. Having read this week, some of it is very 90s, 2000s early 2000s comics, and not for the better. So I don't know. yeah, it's hard to talk about. But yeah, overall the story's great. There's just like a few pages where I'm like, can I just like rip that out and just like move on?
Reminds you of Top Gun. Like it's got the Top Gun vibes, right? A Baywatch, sort of the sexy,
I mean, like
rock and roll.
he is the one who introduced us to Darth Talon and okayed that. I don't know if I don't know how much he pushed for that character. Well, did he push for the character design? Like, did Dersma like give him like 20 things? Like, I like the one with the least amount of clothes, please.
But this is definitely something, right or wrong. This was the theme and style of '90s comics. I mean, we don't support it. We don't. We're glad
we're happy
as a show that we're past it. But that is what it comics are were back then. So.
Yeah,
nothing we can do about that except just acknowledge it.
We've come a long way since Darth Talon and Guri
and Shadows of the Empire. Yeah,
it looks like we brought Zeltrons back, so I'm not sure where that's going.
Wait, weren't they in the Landos? Was that the species that was in the Lando Double or Nothing? Am I misremembering that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but for those who don't know, Zeltrons are basically aliens who love pleasure. Whatever that comes in.
Don't they also have pheromones too? So aren't they also kind of like Falling but less scaly?
I think so. Well, they're definitely blue, that's for sure.
Well, I thought they're pink.
Pink?
I was gonna say on the walk they're pink.
I've seen them as blue. Maybe I'm colorblind. That's fine. I've seen them as blue and
well,
pink
the main one
purple.
in the Legends, her name is Blue, so that's not confusing at all.
That's true. What is her name? Delia Blue.
I looked it up. The species in Double or Nothing is a Petrusian, which is also a pink alien. So there you go.
Okay,
you were close.
Yeah.
Adult themes, definitely.
Yeah. Not for kids.
Definitely.
No. Yeah. Another thing that I saw in a couple of his works was like this weird like non-violence. A lot of his characters, like in a couple of the Jedi like specific ones, where there were a lot of like groups of his of the Jedi who were like specifically when the Clone Wars were starting, we're not doing that. We're not guardians of soldiers. We're guardians of peace, and you can't have peace fighting a war. And that's something that I think came up a couple of other times. Like there's missionaries in some of his work that are non-violent. Like, is that something that you think you see a lot, Freddy?
Oh, that's hard to say. I feel like Legacy is very violent in a sense. There's a lot of battle going on in different factions, so there's something there. But in most cases, he does like to play around with characters and their thoughts and certain sequences. Right. And I wouldn't say he shies from it, but I don't see it as often, I guess, now that you talk about it. I don't see it in a lot of his other works.
It was definitely apparent to me in the what was the Republic issues I read, because like you had Quinlan and Twilight, you had Quinlan Voss like struggling he doesn't know what a Jedi does, so he's like trying to struggle with what people are telling him a Jedi is expected to do, and trying to be nonviolent. And you get a really cool interaction with Mace Windu where he's like compassionate, which is like kind of bizarre for how we understand Mace Windu now. He's like trying to be like, no, like, well, like, this isn't you, this isn't the Jedi way, like, you gotta be like a good person, you can't like kill them, we'll retrain you, like just being very like understanding. And it's like, that is not Clone Wars Season 7 Mace Windu, I'll tell you that much.
War changes a man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. No, you've got an interesting take there, Caleb. That's a good point.
Like, it's not something that it's like he's saying that nonviolence is the answer, but a lot of his characters, specifically more than any other like Star Wars medium, have been like tout and talk about like, man, even we're in a universe called Star Wars, and isn't that a little weird? Like, I don't want to fight. Like, does everything have to be a war? But it's in the title, so they're usually in the wrong.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah. Well, should we talk like at least briefly about Dawn of the Jedi? Like, I mean, I feel like that's one of his other. It was cut short, but I feel like that's one of his other large, I guess, at least most significant works.
Oh, definitely. It was.
Yeah. I was more into the book at that time, Dawn of the Jedi, and it's just like you talked about earlier. It's on the other extreme, almost entirely, right? I don't believe we're even into the Jedi yet. It's Jedi or however they call it, and it presents such an interesting archaeological Star Wars in a sense, right? Like
Mm.
how would it go if for some reason we were advanced yet antiquated at the same time? And that's exactly what you see. And the stories there are fairly interesting as well. And it's I'm sure. Did you get into this one on Wikipedia as well, Jacob?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, let's go to the very beginning. It's like, yep, there you go.
And it's interesting that he hit both of them. I mean,
Mhm.
they're both on completely opposite spectrums.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it was cut short. There was more planned for it, but that was, like Freddie said, there's a novel that came out, and we got like 16 issues of comics. But then, yeah, that's when Disney bought Lucas. So never really know where it was gonna go from there.
Fortunately.
So as we start to wrap up, we do have a note here. Caleb noted that Quinlan Voss has been translated into canon. I'd like to go around to the three of you because I can't answer this question. And if there was one thing, one thing from Ostrander's work that you'd like to see get the Quinlan Voss effect and come and be pulled into canon, what would that one thing be? And I'm going to end with Freddy. He looks like he's already ready. But I'm going to let him end this segment. I'm going to start with Caleb.
Yes, and what I wrote by this is like, if you read the Dark Disciple, like that character is very clearly, they read a lot of like the Quinlan Voss like stories, and his character is very much in line with how he's portrayed through these Ostrander works. Not exactly
totally
the same
agree.
character, but he flirts with the dark side, falls into it. He has an adult relationship with an attractive woman. Like, he hits all the check marks. So if not other than Quinlan Voss, who would I like to see?
It doesn't have to be a person. It doesn't have to be a person. It can be an era. It can be a particular arc. I'm leaving it wide open here.
Okay, then we'll do this one. Like I would like to see like the Jedi explore non-violence in a more interesting way. Like I like how I said I found it very interesting. I like the whole conscientious objector like kind of thought process, and like having like people like this is a war and this is fighting this war is actually not a good thing. And I would like to see a little bit more of a nuanced take onto that process there. I think that's what I would like to see, is like kind of a different outlook from an author onto what violence means in a society.
Okay. All right. I like it. All right, Jacob, you're up next.
Well, I can't pull like anything from Legacy because it just would not work in the current canon. Because well, first off, Luke Skywalker didn't have a kid, so that really messes things up.
That we know of. Well, we know about Rey Skywalker.
Okay. All right, maybe. You know what?
We're bringing Kate back.
There's a lot of time that is.
I honestly
we are not
hadn't thought of Rey Skywalker in that capacity of carrying on the Skywalker name in that way. That's interesting, and I'm gonna think about that more. But anyways, no. So I can't say Quinlan Voss. I'm gonna go with a character I read in Twilight though, who I thought was hilarious. Villy, the Devronian character. I thought he was funny, and I looked up on. Apparently, he's already canon because apparently he's the Devronian that shows up in Attack of the Clones. So
great.
Yeah,
he literally got the Quinlan Voss effect.
Yeah, he showed up
a background character in the movie.
Yep. He was very funny. Like the whole like premise is like Quinlan's on Nar Shaddaa, and like everyone's like has a betting pool for when he's gonna die, and Villy is in on the pool, but then like doesn't, like he fails, like his time wasn't correct. So then he's like constantly making bets on Quinlan Voss's life to like keep up. He's like, oh, I bet on you getting off planet, so now I'm gonna help you. You can trust me. And then, oh, I'm gonna bet that you're gonna make it off this planet too. And it's just like, I don't know. He's just a funny character.
Okay. All right, and I'll turn it over to Freddy to sort of wrap up this discussion.
I would like to see Darth Talon brought back in a version that the current world would accept, but also in a stronger character where she is possibly the main villain or is lurking in the shadows somewhere. I'd like to see Darth Talon come back, and I feel like if Darth Talon did come back, she would make quite an impact in the community with the people who already know who she is and love her. I mean, it's a very well receptive character. I've seen so many different types at celebrations. I know people like her. I can't imagine how much time it takes to do that makeup, but I'd like to see the canon take on how they bring that back.
I feel like Darth Talon is the Mephisto of Star Wars. And what I mean by that is these last few Marvel movies and Marvel TV shows, like as the internet dives through that, like I think every single show in the last year. So we're talking about, except for maybe Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Oh, could this be a hint towards Mephisto? Oh, does this little devil signature mean Mephisto's coming back? And I feel like in the Star Wars community, to a lesser extent, that is the name that I see pop up more often than not. Of, does this possibly lead to? I mean, these articles are reaching sometimes, but Darth Talon is a name that I continue to see pop up online as. Can we see this as a lead into Darth Talon? Or
second only to Revan, of course.
Oh my god, yeah.
Revan's a completely different.
Revan,
that's a completely different topic. But Darth Talon is somebody that I really feel would get a lot of support, especially as you say, Freddie, done in a modern way. That I really think that there's a nice online contingency of people that would like to see her come back.
Agreed.
Yep. So. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap up the show tonight? Are there any final thoughts that anybody would like to have on John Ostrander or any of these books that I am currently looking up on Amazon right now?
You know, I would like to see John Ostrander pen an Archie comic. I'd like to see how that goes.
Well, I can think of no better way to end this week's episode of the Cosmic Force. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the show right here on YouTube, where you can hear us live every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. We also encourage you to subscribe to our audio versions on all of your podcast platforms. You can also be sure to visit utini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. And we also encourage you to join our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/Discord. And you can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/Utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to JG Kars, OK Endar, Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, Carl Sander, and Earl Q on our Jedi High Council, as well as Matt Billington, Tyler Latour, Kyle Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. You can tweet the show at Cosmic Force Show on Twitter or at any of the hosts individually. I am at Ty Rags, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, Jacob is at Jacob Bosch, and Freddie is at Wake Up Freddie. Thank you to Freddie and Caleb and Jacob for hosting with me tonight. Thank you for all of you that were in our chat tonight, helping to support the show. And thank you to all of you listeners, wherever and whenever you are. We truly appreciate you. We will hope to see you next week, but until then, may the Force be with you.